We are recording this. So hello to those who are joining us from watching this after the fact. If you do not want to be on the screen, all you have to do is don't unmute yourself. You'll only show up if you're speaking. We have automated closed captioning available tonight. So if you click on the three dots titled More on the bottom bar of the Zoom screen, and then click Captions and then Show Captions, you can use that. Haley, our delightful coworker, is our tech host tonight and will do her best to assist if you have any questions. Additionally, Haley will be collecting questions for the question and answer section at the end. So if you have a question during our time, feel free to just pop that into the chat. I and Mike and whoever is talking, we won't see the chat, so we won't get to it when in that moment, but we'll get to it later. So I'm going to share my screen, and it's so nice to see you. And if you haven't yet, I welcome you to put into the chat your name and where you're calling in from if you'd like to. Great. So we're here to talk about the Summer Leadership Lab, which is a new project for Quaker Voluntary Service. We'll do a couple other things as well. So we have introductions from those of us on staff who are here with you. And then the bulk of the evening will be spent on the Summer Leadership Lab after we talk about just an overview of how the QVS year is going so far. And we'll have Q&A at the end. So we'll have folks here go from left to right, top to bottom. So hi, I'm Hillary. I won't be the only one who talks tonight, but I will be talking a lot. I'm the executive director, and I live in Western Massachusetts, where we've gotten probably a foot of snow total in the last couple weeks, and I love it. It's beautiful. Mike.
I am Mike Huber, he, him. I work as Director of Program from my attic space in Portland, Oregon.
Thanks, Mike. Rye Carter is the Philadelphia coordinator, and they are also the Summer Leadership Lab coordinator. They were going to be with us tonight, and something came up, and they couldn't avoid needing to miss it. But they're sad not to be with us, and I'll be sharing what they had prepared. Haley?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see a bunch of familiar faces. My name's Haley Castle-Miller, she, her pronouns. I'm the Development and Outreach Manager, and I'm calling from Portland, Maine.
Yeah, they're Portland. And we also have local support committee members and spiritual nurturers and QVS staff on this team, on this screen, and board members. And so hello, and thank you all for being here. So just some brief updates on the program year so far. We have been really encouraged by the recruitment last year that has meant just about double number of applications last year, and so nearly doubled cohort size this year. We reopened the Twin Cities program, so we've been in 4 cities this year, and yeah, it just feels really like full, and we have a lot of care from local friends in all of our cities, and that's really yeah, that's a really big foundation for our program. We began the year with 18 fellows. 2 have left, and that's pretty typical for us. We take that into consideration, knowing that this is not going to be for everybody. And our application for this upcoming year has already gone live on our website, and we have 9 people who started applications. And just for reference, this year, last year at this time, we had 1 applicant, 1 person who started an application. So we have 9. And I am really glad that Ruth, our recruitment staff, is here and can celebrate that with us. Our site placements this year really run the gamut of the kinds of organizations we're working with. We're working with an urban agriculture organization in Boston. We're working with healthcare providers. We're working with Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. That's a new one for us. There's fellows in 2 different departments. For the first time, we're working with School of the Spirit, and we are working again with Pendle Hill, which we've worked with them some years and not with others. This year, Pendle Hill Fellow is funded through Friends Foundation for the Aging. So we continue to expand the kinds of organizations we're working with. This is the first time we've worked with a for-profit site placement, and that's Cooperative Energy Futures in the Twin Cities. And I can come back to this slide later if you have questions about these sites, or if you want to know anything more about the application process for site placements. And if you are if you know of any organizations in our program cities, please let us know if we should reach out to them to invite them to be a site placement. So I'll hand it over to Mike.
Thank you. When we met last year, the big change that we wanted to talk about was the change to our program year from an 11-month program to a 9.5-month program. So far, the year is pretty much what you would expect from the year. So I don't know if we can say definitively how the shortened year will affect the current year overall, because so far the year is starting like years often start. There are some things that I can mention in particular, like one of our hopes was that having a shorter year would make it easier to synergize with friends camps. Many of the camps want counselors to be working by June for the camp year. And so in the past, they'd been kind of reluctant to work with us to give us contact information for counselors that might serve as fellows, things like that. We, in many ways, had a great synergy with the camp. Some of our best fellows have been people who've come from a camping background. Some of our staff has come from a camping background. There's a lot about what QVS is trying to do with community that's sort of intuitive for campers. And we were hoping that the shorter program would be allow us to work with camps more closely. I'm not sure that that's going to work out as well as we had hoped. There's a conversation that's sort of ongoing between the director of the Baltimore Yearly Meeting Camping Program and QVS about ways to connect. But from the camp's point of view, they're looking for ways to communicate at a QVS day about needs for counselors. So they want to do recruiting at a QVS day in a way that we're trying to figure out how that's going to work. And when we mostly want to try and get a hold of them, they're very busy people, and they've also really struggled to find enough camp counselors. So they're experiencing some similar things that we are. We're still trying to figure out how to build the best synergy between QVS and Quaker Camping. And we look forward to continuing to learn more about how to do that. I also wanted to mention that this year we started a slightly different flavored program in Boston. Zenaida was excited to start the BAT program in Boston. The Boston area troublemakers. We're going to get together and have more of a kind of an earth spirituality focus, and with like herbal medicine and some ancient wisdom that's plant-based. And one of the specific things that Zenaida is doing as sort of like a different flavor in Boston that is pretty cool is each month has a theme. I think the first month was grief, and then November was gratitude. I'm not sure what December is. But each of those months, Zenaida has bought a children's book on that theme and read that with the fellows. I was there for a QVS day in November when the book was read by the group, and everybody seemed to really get a lot out of it and enjoy it. So those are some ways that the program is different this year than it was last year. And of course, the big news for today is that shortening the year also opened up the possibility of creating a summer program. And our pilot for that will be in Philadelphia. And here is Hillary to say more about that.
Thanks. Yeah, so why are we doing a summer program? QVS, as all of you know, QVS started in order to serve the needs of young adults who are hungry for spiritual deepening opportunities. And we've seen that hunger and the way that manifests shift over that last 12 years, and especially since the pandemic began. We have a lot of cultural shifts. Gen Zers are now our young adults. So we are thinking about how we can reach this cohort of young people. If you've talked to me in the last year, you have heard me speak about the survey we conducted in the fall of a year ago. And we learned a lot from young adults through that survey. And one of the things we heard was they're looking for shorter term opportunities for service, leadership, and internship like things to help them feel more grounded and to be part of their life trajectory. Philadelphia program has been around since 2013, and we've had over 50 fellows go through that program city and deepen into Quakerism or explore the religious society of Friends for the first time. And QVS has played a major role in their spiritual lives. And so now we're excited to get to expand that programming and connect with people who are a little bit younger. We know that these younger folks, people ages 18 to 20, are also looking for experiences that will change their life and change their trajectory. And so we want to support young adults in preparing for the lives that they are called to lead. With that in mind, our purposes of this new program are threefold. It will broaden the scope of our impact by reaching adults at young adults at a younger age. It will help us learn more about young adults and their needs as they seek social justice pathways. And it will strengthen our collaboration with local organizations with whom we already work, and also with new organizations that we don't yet have an opportunity to work with. There's a lot of organizations in each of our cities that are not looking for a fellow, but might be able to host the Summer Leadership Lab residents for a day during the summer. So there's 5 major components to the Summer Leadership Lab. Our intention is to build a program that is by young adults and for young adults. So one thing that happens even before these 5 key elements is the residents themselves will be part of the planning process that will start in the spring. During the summer lab residents will volunteer at local organizations. So this includes orgs like MANA, which helps prepare food, pack containers, and deliver meals directly to the doorsteps of Philadelphians living with serious illness. The residents will connect with activists in the local community. They'll explore spirituality with local friends. We know how much local friends have to offer, and this can look like friends offering a experiment with light meditation or going for a walk in the city garden that has a grief walk. So there's a lot of opportunities for a real connection. The residents will deepen into community with one another. It's a huge part of our QVS year, and it's also going to be a really important part of the resident experience over the summer. The residents, will live together in the QVS house in Philadelphia, in Mantua. So we have a lot of tools to offer from our time working with 12 years worth of fellows. And similarly, we have a lot of workshops to share with this cohort. And our staff member, Rye, it has also been on staff for a number of years as the coordinator for Philadelphia and before that for Atlanta. So we have a really deep bench on our staff team, and I'm excited to get to share that with these younger adults. And as I mentioned, another really important piece of this program is the planning that will happen in the spring by the residents with RAI, with the coordinator. And that looks like RAI bringing a variety of options of different organizations and hearing from the residents what they're most interested in. Maybe this group of young adults is really interested in urban planning and they want to learn about how highways got in the middle of the city, and they want to learn about green spaces, and they want to talk about community organizing in housing units. That it's really tailored to the group of young adults that are in the program. Similarly, the residents will be meeting with activists and social justice leaders, and maybe those folks are really interested in pacifism and want to meet with local conscientious objectors. Maybe they've been really engaged in supporting LGBTQ folks. It really is going to be up to this group of young adults with guidance from RAI. And we are getting to learn a lot about 18 to 20-year-olds through this program. I'm sure you're also interested in just like, okay, what does the day-to-day look like? That's what I think. So this is what a sample week is. On Sunday, residents are expected to attend meeting for worship. They'll go as a group to one of the local meetings, and a group of local friends, the summer support committee, will be preparing the meeting and preparing spiritual deepening activities for the young adults. So that could look like preparing a worship sharing activity or hearing from a member of the spiritual support committee about their own spiritual journey. It really, we want to draw out the gifts of local friends. And we know that there are so many gifts during the QVS year we don't get a chance to see and live into with local friends. Mondays and Wednesdays are programming days, and that's basically like a QVS day for the fellows. It's a full day where the residents will be with one another and with RAI. There might be outside facilitators or outside workshops, and then workshops led by QVS staff as well. Tuesdays and Thursdays are the volunteer days, and those are with local organizations, as I mentioned before, like MANA or the Mount Airy Trash Team. Those are big group projects. They're likely to be much more hands-on than a lot of our fellowship positions. And then there's opportunity in the evenings and afternoons on those days for debriefing and talking about the different roles of social change and the way that change happens in our cities and in our organizations. Fridays and Saturdays are their weekend. Sunday is a fully packed day, and we want to make sure that they have time to rest and rejuvenate and also explore the city, especially for those for whom Philadelphia is a new place. A little bit more about the Summer Support Committee. If you're familiar with the programs, our current fellowship programs, we have a local support committee, and that group of people is instrumental in supporting fellows in connecting with local friends and understanding more about the Quaker networks, and also connecting with other organizations and projects and programs happening in the city. So we need your gifts. We need your hospitality. We need you to continue to ground us in worship and in our faith. Similar to the local support committee, we ask that summer support committee folks are assigned or nominated through their host meeting, through their meeting, and through a meeting that's connected with QVS. The primary role for these committee members is to provide spiritual support and accompaniment for summer participants. And this is more hands-on, but for a less amount of time. So Sundays are really hands-on for the summer support committee and for volunteers leading spiritual deepening activities. that is different than the local support committee, and I hope that it will speak to additional supporters and friends who bring different gifts and who want to be involved in different ways. And ultimately, we need local friends to take responsibility in four specific areas: spiritual accompaniment, hospitality, event planning, and connecting QVS to the broader community of friends. So far, recruiting is going really well. It's really exciting. Ruth can attest to this as well. We are recruiting at colleges and universities, not because it's a requirement to be in college, but because that's where there's a lot of young people between ages of 18 and 20. We always are looking for ways to connect with other young adults. So there's also opportunities to learn about this through social media and through our website and all that. We have already received a lot of interest in our recruiting. So at any recruiting event, we have a sign up list. Do you want to learn more about the fellowship program? And now we have an additional sign up list. Do you want to learn more about the summer leadership lab? And we've had 150 people sign up for that news list that for updates. And we already have a number of people, several people who have started applications. And there's a website called Handshake, which is a job listing site similar to LinkedIn, but for college students and recent grads. And we've already gotten responses from users of Handshake. 57 people have expressed interest in the summer program. And it's just really exciting. And I'll also say that I went to a recruiting event recently. I live near Smith College and all of the colleges in Western Mass. And it was a great way to start conversations with young adults about our fellowship program, you know, through the Summer Leadership Lab, and about Quakerism. There were a number of people, and I think Ruth can really speak to this the most, but there's a lot of people who come to the table when we're recruiting who probably aren't going to do QVS, but who do want to talk to whoever's at the table about Quakerism and about Quakers. And it was really fun to get to share living, you know, close to Smith. My meeting is in Northampton, and inviting those people to come to meeting and to say like, I'll be there. So it would be fun to see you. And I've seen some of them. And that there's the ways that we're making connections don't always result in a summer leadership lab resident or in a fellow, but it often results in deep and interesting conversations and just broadening the understanding of Quakers. So I'll turn it over to Haley. That's kind of the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, so it might be that at this time you're thinking, how can I support this amazing program? So this year, the Summer Leadership Lab is funded by the Tyson Memorial Fund, but we will need your support in order to offer this opportunity in the future. And the way you can do that is by just donating to our annual fund. And right now, for the end of the calendar year, we have a matching gift campaign. So all new or increased gifts will be matched up to $20,000. I also want to just thank you all for being here, for all of your support in the many ways that you support QVS, financially or otherwise. It really makes the program possible. And if you have any questions about your giving or about ways that you can give, you can always reach out to me at haley@quakervoluntaryservice.org, and I'll put that in the chat. And another way that you can support the Summer Leadership Lab is if you're local to the Philadelphia area and you're interested in serving on the Summer Support Committee, you can reach out to Rye, and I'll put their email in the chat as well.
Thanks,
So
Haley.
yeah, I think now we'll move on to answering any questions that you have. So feel free to pop something in the chat, or you can raise your physical hand or a virtual hand, and I'll call on you. And I can also kind of manage some questions in the chat. We do have a few questions in the chat already. How many hours each week will they work at the volunteer positions? And following up with that, will they work at their own or at the same site placement?
Yeah, so the group of the residents will be moving together as a little herd. So they'll all be going to Mana together. They'll all be going to Historic Fair Hill together. And it really depends on the organization. Some organizations kind of cap out at 3 or 4 hours for volunteers. Others can take volunteers all day. It'll be up to the organization and to the residents in terms of like their energy and capacity. So there won't be one site that any resident is going to every day. So that's going to be a big difference. I think I'm interested to see how it goes, like how they like it. Yeah, good question. And the dates are July 7th to August 10th. We're also aware that Philadelphia Yearly Meeting meets during that time, and we hope that the residents are interested in attending in some way and being part of that regional gathering.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's just good to settle in on a dark December night here early on Lopez Island and share this news and things. I'm always so inspired by the way in which QVS keeps evolving and looking at new ways of doing things to serve young adults within that spiritual context and vocation and avocation. A couple of things that you probably have been dear to my heart. One is I'm excited to hear that we actually have a for-profit organization. It sounds like a for-profit organization actually doing good in the world, which I know there are a number of them. What are our thoughts about more organizations of that type, and do we sense that there's interest in that from young adults for the fellows program?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll stop there.
that's a great question. One of the tricky nitty-gritty detail pieces is we need to come up with a slightly different contract for profits, and that we're working with our pro bono lawyers on that, but that's a barrier to really doing a lot more. I know from our alumni, there's a lot of people who are in the renewable energy field, and I think had they been able to get in that field beforehand, they would have been interested. There was another state that we almost worked with in the Boston area that is part bookshop and part event space. And that is also, it's a half nonprofit and half for profit. And we were excited to get to try that out as well. The fellow would have been organizing events and utilizing that space for community. And yeah, I think continues to be a question of how to hear from there's lots of people who choose not to apply to QVS, and we don't often get to hear why they chose not to apply. Sometimes we hear from people after they've applied, and if they choose to do something else, if they choose to leave the application process, sometimes we'll know a little bit. But I think that having more different kinds of site placements will mean we're getting more different kinds of applicants. Thanks so much, John.
Somebody else better ask a question or I'll ask another one.
Go for it, John.
I'll ask another one. Oh, no. Oh, hands up. Good. Go, Chris. Oh, 2 hands up now. Yay. I don't need to ask another question. Maybe later.
We took you up on that offer,
But
John.
I'm sure it's a great question, so I hope you do. So for people who need to, I mean, it's the perennial issue of any volunteer thing for folks who need their summers to make some money for college. What's the is there any,
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't mention the finances. Yes, so residents will, in the same way that we take care of all the basic needs for fellows, we'll be taking care of the needs for the residents. So we're paying for their housing and they'll receive a food stipend. And in addition to that, there's a $600 stipend. So it's not as much as if somebody was working full-time at a job, at a job with a salary or at a gig job, but we hope that it's enough. And by providing housing and the food stipend, that it will allow people who do feel like they need to be making money over the summer to apply.
That was my
Danny?
question, so.
Oh, great.
Joe.
Think about the summer program and the issue of breadth versus steps. That you've chosen a model where people will spend relatively short periods of time with a number of organizations, and so get at least some overview of the organizations, but that comes at the expense of an in-depth understanding of any one of them. And I'm just curious about your thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great point. And it has been a question, which one to prioritize. Part of it is we want to engage with organizations how they want to be engaged with. And for a lot of organizations, having somebody volunteering for 5 weeks just isn't long enough for them for it to be worth it. And with this younger cohort, they're coming in with less experience than our fellows. Fellows are coming in at 21, 22. Most of them are 22 or 23. Many of them have been in college, or if they haven't, they've been working for the last couple of years. And so they're really bringing a lot of experience. And these young adults, some of them might be just graduating from high school, and they might have different gifts to offer and a little less experience in professional workplaces and doing the kinds of in-depth tasks that our fellows do. That
Thank you.
might change it in the future, but that's our experiment. Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I know that part of Rye's vision for the programming for this group is also to give them space to do some discernment about the kind of program that they want. And so the actual number of sites that they'll go to and which sites that they'll go to will depend on the discernment work that they're doing as a group. So that sort of collective discernment piece is a big part of the programming. Everything that you're saying about depth versus breadth is true. But I just wanted to pull the camera back maybe a little bit from the work at the site placement to the work of discernment about how the young people are envisioning their time and what they're looking for from it, and how that piece of it is part of the core programming that we're hoping to set up.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Janet.
Yeah, my question has to do is during the year-long program, site placements pay a fee in order to have our volunteers, and that helps supplement the cost of the program. Will there be any kind of financial arrangements with our site placements over the summer? Okay.
No, not this year. With this setup, no. We did talk about when we were in the beginning stages of imagining this, one idea was, what if we had summer fellows for 2 months who were at one of our site placements? And as Mike said, Rye is really feeling like this other way is where we want to experiment this year, and I'm excited to get to support their vision. And we don't know if site placements want somebody for 2 months. I think we've gotten the impression that that's too short. We're going to learn a lot this year. And that's why it's funded, that's why we got a grant for it. And the Tyson Memorial Fund will cover this year, and we'll be able to determine how we want to expand it, if we want to expand it, if it worked, if it didn't work. I think that's one of the joys of working at a faith-led organization is it's okay if we try something, we follow a leading, and that's the end of the leading. We can do something else. Thanks, Janet.
Yeah, Lynn.
You probably mentioned it, but maybe it went over my head. Is this experiment, or is this for this first year only and only in Philadelphia this first year?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I pieced that together. Is there any consideration, depending on how it goes, to expand it to other cities?
Depending on how it goes, absolutely. We shorten the program year. The houses are available. I think it depends a lot on how much time is required to set up the program. This year we're coming up with the whole thing. It's not just like,
Yeah, right.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
let's remember to get in touch with that site placement or that
Yeah, it's not
organization.
exactly plug and play.
Exactly. But after this first year, I could imagine if it goes really well, if there's an outpouring of financial support, if we learn a lot about the organizations we're working with, that we might want to expand it to any of our other cities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If I can just add something from like the previous question. I did speak with a local friend in Philadelphia who did a program very similar to this, like when they were younger. And the one thing that was more challenging about the program was that there wasn't really enough reflection done. So it was like being exposed to a lot of challenging things and then not having some deeper reflection to kind of think about exactly what they experienced or what they participated in. And I think that's something that QVS does really well. And so I think there was early on, I was kind of working more closely with Rye and speaking with local friends and kind of just gathering some information. And so I feel like that was a really helpful conversation that's sort of started to guide some of the bulk of this programming.
Thanks, Haley. Marianne, yeah.
Could you say something about the demographics of the young people who are interested in applying, and if you're seeing a difference between those who apply for the fellows and then this short-term program or 5-week program? And
That is such a good question. Ruth is looking like maybe she'll say something, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I haven't noticed yet because we're not seeing applications come in fully. I think once we have applications, we'll have, demographic information from all of them. And I've just been at the one recruiting event, so it seemed like the same kinds of people were interested. It just depended on their age. But that's very narrow little view.
the other piece that I wanted to ask around was the word discernment has been used and some other Quaker terminology. And I'm wondering about those who are Quakers who apply and those who aren't, and how those who aren't sort of are brought up to speed, so to speak, within the Quaker kind of way of and working together.
Yeah, I imagine that'll be one of the first, I think, business meeting and Quaker theology with making decisions will be one of the first pre-sessions, those planning sessions. And similar to our fellowship program, the residents aren't required to be fellows. The residents are not required to be Quakers. And I bet most of them won't be, but they are required to be interested in using Quaker tools. So similar to the fellows, it's, you know, it's a learning curve for them of how to use those tools authentically. Yeah, Joe and then Chris.
Just to build on that last question a bit, I think one of the roles of QVS is to teach Quakers some skills that we sort of think they ought to know and they don't. And there may not be that great a difference between the two populations.
Yeah. That is very true.
Just what I was thinking, Joe. But I had a question about this discernment period that Rye sees, and wondering how much, maybe you don't even know yet, how much you're leaving up in the air for the participants to decide about versus things that unless you have them set up ahead, you're like ambushing an organization or whatever to, you know, and creating expectations of instant work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I think well, Mike, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Not to grab the mic away, but I feel like one of the things that Rise said that really struck me is that in the work that Rise done to look at what other groups are doing and how other groups have set things up, telling people who are in this age group, you have the capacity to do this kind of discernment is a rare message to be giving someone of this age group. And it's kind of part of what's exciting to me about QVS programming is as Quakers, we don't think that somebody has to become Quaker before they can use the Quaker tools of listening and being guided by the light within. So the tools that we're using, I hope that we would all recognize them as Quaker tools, but we want to put them on the table and invite people to use them without feeling like they first need to make a commitment to a particular theological infrastructure to be able to pick them up and experiment with them. We want to be experimental, and we want to take seriously the idea that people are capable of this kind of discernment, and young people are capable of this kind of discernment. And I know that part of why Rise is excited about this program is so we take that seriously and having a sense of partnership with young adults about the kind of program that we create together. I do think things like if we wanted a site to eventually have some sort of site placement fee, it's the kind of thing that would be hard to do with very little lead time, like waiting for the people of this age group to decide where they want to work and then say, oh, good news, we have some young adults who want to work there and here's what it will cost you. At the kind of last minute would be way more awkward than working with organizations ahead of time to find out what their budget is like and if this is the capacity that they have. So there's still things that we will have to learn and sort out here. But this year we're really leaning on the scale, the side of the scale that is what happens when we provide maximum invitation to shared discernment as part of the experience for these young people.
And from a just timing perspective, those pre-sessions start in April. So they'll be happening over the course of April and May. And my belief is that it's not like whatever you want we'll make happen, right? It's there's already been conversations between QVS and various site placements or local friends and activists in the area, and just kind of putting it on your radar. We're going to have the summer program, and I'd like for the residents to consider inviting you for one of our programs, that sort of thing. Janet?
Yeah, what's the, is there any kind of sort of preference given to folks who've done the summer program to slide into the year-long program?
Oh, I love that idea.
And I recognize that the year-long program is 21 and over, and if we have 18-year-olds, they're going to be, a few years before they can qualify. But I don't know, whether, or, somehow shorten the application process for folks who've done the summer program. It's just,
That's a great idea. I have not thought about that's like thinking a couple steps ahead. I'm thinking like next step. But we should write that down for our future selves. And certainly knowing people ahead of time is such an advantage. We've had that over the years with like young people who I knew when they were in high school in New England yearly meeting, or somebody who was another person's camp counselor. So there's been connections before that have really helped us understand how to support a fellow or an applicant when they're in that process. Yeah, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fascinating experiment, and I think it's well worth the effort. And I'm happy to hear we're going to do that. And going back to the fellows program, I would love to hear from Ruth or others about we had good success this year in recruiting relatively. And we have room to grow back to the size that we once were in the mid 30s a couple of years. What are we doing this year that gives us a sense of encouragement that we can take another jump forward in terms of the number of people getting? Are there things we're doing differently? Are there particular lessons we've learned in our outreach?
That's a great question. Ruth, do you want to speak to that some? And
yeah, I could say a little bit about what's like there was a 1.0 version of Ruth that mined the Google Drive and tried to find contact information for people. And I think I'm up to I've passed the 1.5 version. I think I'm at 2.0. I have a database where I've been tracking people, and I just feel like that email list has grown. We took our applications down for a while and replaced the application with a opportunity for people to just sign up for our mailing list. So for months, people signed up. We got quite a number of people that way. And I just think being organized and having everything all in one place has made it so that I can reach out. Just this week, I reached out to about 500 people to let them know that our applications are open. And that number seems really big. It's because it includes people from past years. So until they tell me to stop emailing them, I'm continuing to email them. Yeah, that's a little bit about what I can say about recruiting. I could probably talk to you all for hours about recruiting, and you don't want me to do that. So Hillary, please feel free to add more.
yeah, I think some of the shifts I've seen in the last year, I'm trying to remember when exactly last year you went to the national chaplains meeting, but we know that the best recruiters are folks who know the young adult personally. It's not nearly as effective for it to just go out in an email blast. But if the chaplain who you go to events with says, I just heard about this program and I'd love to tell you about it. Here's a flyer, that's really effective. So post-pandemic, for many years that wasn't happening in person. And I think last year was the first year that Ruth went and met these chaplains in person, and now getting to use those relationships during the whole recruiting season. That's the sort of thing that that we're working on this year. That feels like the big kind of like connector work that we want to be leaning into more again.
Yeah, good.
That's a good
Thanks.
question, John. Yeah. Mike, yes.
I want to reemphasize what you may or may not have heard right at the very beginning, John, that we have 9 people who started applications this year compared to 1 last year at this point. So that doesn't prove anything, but it is a better sign than if it was going the other direction. And I also want to say that I've heard from Ruth on several occasions, as Ruth has been at different sort of events, recruiting events, that people are excited about the summer program, and that excitement about the summer program has drawn people into conversation in a way that has also been helpful in making an introduction to the longer year-long program.
Yeah. Thanks. We have just a couple minutes left. Any other questions?
Well, a comment. Thank you for your faithfulness, friends.
Thanks.
The fact that we have so many people we can send emails out is just a testament to the number of lives that you've impacted. And in really powerful and unique ways. So the ongoing dedication and work and faithfulness in a topsy-turvy world is inspirational and really just great, much gratitude to you all.
Thank you, John. It's really, we're doing a alumni survey right now, and it's really fun to see those results come in, and alums from 2013, from 2015, from all of the cities telling us what tools they still use, what housemates they're still in touch with, what careers they're in. It's really, really exciting. Yeah, Marianne.
Oh, just hearing that, it would be interesting if there's some kind of a summary of what that looks like for those of us who are not close. That would be, I think that would be
Absolutely.
of interest and helpful for us to get a sense about that.
Yeah, Haley and I were just talking earlier today about an alumni, the next alumni impact report. We came out with one in 2020, and we thought a lot about like what questions do we want to be asking so that we can, what's the information that people want to know about? What do local support committee members, what will they find helpful to know about alumni experiences? What will donors find helpful? What will prospective applicants? So I'm really looking forward to putting together that when we get, we're hoping for 80% of our alums to fill out the survey. I know that it is a little bit like pulling teeth right now. So we'll see, but I think the survey is open until end of December or sometime in January. Thank you all. It's so nice to be with you. I'm so grateful for your time and energy and care and love. And thanks for being here. Thanks for being curious. Thanks for asking good questions. Hope you have a great night.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Blessings.
Night.
John, I'll
nice-
call you tomorrow.